If you're a fan of character-driven fantasy with a lot of political intrigue and a kind of slow burn plot, then today's book just might be for you. Today, I will be reviewing A Queen in Hiding by Sarah Kozloff. Welcome to Spencer's Everything. I'm your host, Spencer Duncan, and today we're taking a look at the first book in what is a 4-book series that I first learned about from NPR. They said that this book was as good as a Game of Thrones, except that it was finished. I will let you know if I agree with that assessment. I don't agree with that assessment. I'll tell you that now. But I will say that I did find it an interesting read. Just to give you a quick synopsis, Queen in Hiding, it actually introduces us to a magical world called Ithacana, and it's a realm full of, political tension and magical powers. And of course, you have this royal family, which you'll discover why, but they are soon to be a royal family on the run. And the story actually centers around Cerulia, who is a young princess, and she is actually forced to flee her kingdom after her mother, the queen Cressa, is betrayed by many of her closest advisors. And so then Queen Cressa, who's has some kind of mysterious magical abilities, she is queen over both revere her as well as fear her, and she is abruptly dethroned. And so then that of course leaves the life of her young daughter. It hangs in the balance, and so in order to protect her child, Cressa makes the decision to actually send Cerulia to a far off place, away from the royal court, hoping that she will be able to survive and one day reclaim her place as queen. Cressa will go on to play a prominent point in the book up through about halfway through, and then I will well, I'll let you read to find out what happens to her, but the point is that this is setting up the stage for what is clearly a much longer series. As the name would suggest, one of the most interesting elements of this is, of course, Cerulia and where she is growing up. She's a queen in hiding. As Cerulia grows up in hiding, she is, she is sheltered from palace life, but she also managed to learn the ropes of rural survival and gradually discover her own unique abilities, which, well, again, I'll let you find out what exactly those are. That's a big part of this book, is discovering what people's abilities are. A matter of fact, I'm not entirely sure what the magic system is. That they do give some explanation of it, but it's not, there's no major exposition on it. Well, that's not entirely true. There are times where they try to give you some understanding of it, but I'm sure that if I were to go look up a separate entry on what exactly a magic system of this is, I might have a better understanding. I will say that the beginning of the book it really feels like it's much more focused on character building, and really trying to give you this sense of Cerulia's development and just the way that she's exploring the world through her experiences and all her different observations. I would also say that Kozloff spends a fair amount of time on Cerulia's personality and her relationships, which initially feel like they kind of slow down the pace of the story. I think they're trying to give you just a lot of character development. I think it might be a little more than is necessary in a book like this. I understand that she's trying to build it out into 4 books, but I also think that it doesn't hurt for you to save some of that character development and to use it throughout the next several books. I don't think you should feel obligated to do that all at once. I will say that by the end of this book, by the end of this initial phase, that the growth does have a significant impact, and you certainly get a sense that she's drawing closer, maybe not necessarily to reclaiming the throne or something like that, but she's certainly getting closer to her own personal development, and that's a big part of this book. I will say that a lot of trying to build out this empire, it requires the plot to really build various factions, both within and outside Ithacana, and it's trying to really help them begin to foment and give you an idea of what is about to happen, which means you also have a lot of discussion of allies and enemies, presenting conflicting motivations and just all sorts of stuff that I do think that some people could say was just a little too much on not just the character-driven element, but trying to build things up so that you could have a much more climactic 3rd or 4th book, and in so doing, you kind of drag down the actual narrative of this single first book, which I imagine that's a challenge for anyone that wants to build out such a large book series. So who would I say that this book is for? Well, if you enjoy that character-driven element of fantasy, then I certainly think that you could appreciate this if you're also prepared for this slower build that you're certainly going to have in the first half or so of this book. And if you really want to just like sink into the details of the protagonist's personality and her challenges, then I think this would be a good book for you to pick up. I'd also say that if you're interested in the politicking that is going on, then this is certainly something that could appeal to you. If you like that combination of politics and magic, then this is going to be here. I would also say that if you like the magical element, that is certainly here. I would just say it's not fully defined. Even with those moments of exposition, I'd still say that you don't completely understand what is possible within this magical realm. And I would say that there is a decent amount of action, at least in the second half, although maybe not quite like fun swashbuckling type action. There are certainly elements of high stake and very tense moments that I think you could also regard as action for sure. Who wouldn't I say this is for? Well, if you're not interested in fantasy, it's not for you. If you're not interested in clearly having to read the rest of the series, then this is also not going to be for you. If you, for one reason or another, are going to take issue with how long that it takes to build out these characters and to build up the world and everything else that's going on, this may not be for you. Although I hope to be able to come back and report to you after reading the next couple books in the series that I do think that this is actually totally worth reading. You just had to get through the first book. I don't think that's a great sign for a series as a whole, but I do think that's a real possibility with this book, because I certainly felt moments of high quality writing in this book, and I certainly felt like the world that the author had imagined was something that I wanted to be part of. It was just a matter of getting out of the way of some of the things that kind of slowed down the book, and not letting that deter me from appreciating the rest of the book. I will say that the last 100 or so pages, I felt like we were really starting to pick up, and I was like, oh wow, this is much more interesting. We're finally getting to where I expected this book to be, except I expected it to be at this point 100 pages in, and not just in the final 100 pages or so. So that would be my general critique of this. If you have read this book, please let me know. I would love to know other people's thoughts on this series. If you also happen to come across this book because of NPR Pop Culture Happy Hour, then I would like to know if you thought that this was a wise choice from them, or if you think that maybe that characterization of it was maybe just a little too off. But anyways, just let me know in the comments. Of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on the notifications, and until next time, keep those pages turning.